As part of the All-Time Great series, I will make a unique case for a number of wrestlers of why they are the best to ever do it. In this episode, the featured talent is none other than John Cena. John Cena got his start for the WWE in Ohio Valley Wrestling in 2001. Cena was a part of the greatest group of main event prospects possibly ever seen that included Brock Lesnar, Shelton Benjamin, Batista, and Randy Orton. There are some polarizing names on that list, but possibly none more polarizing than Cena. While Lesnar got pushed almost immediately to the main event scene, it is Cena's debut that is remembered so vividly to this day thanks to a loud statement of what would be the new era of pro wrestling: ruthless aggression. In John's main roster debut, he would take Olympic gold medalist, Attitude Era heavy hitter, and current main eventer Kurt Angle to his absolute limit. While Cena did not win the match, that necessarily wasn't the point. It was that a rookie gave one of the top superstars on SmackDown everything he could handle, and the fact that Angle won by a roll-up made it look more like Kurt escaped than won convincingly. Eventually, Cena's character needed to develop. He couldn't just be the guy who slaps main eventers and almost wins. His on-screen personality needed something else. This is where John entered his Thuganomics years. The Doctor of Thuganomics started as a heel, as Cena portrayed what most fans thought was a poser rather than rapper gimmick. This was a great way for Cena to get heat from the crowd by rhyming insults that mocked the current city he was performing in and their sports teams. Gradually, the Doctor of Thuganomics became a babyface as the gimmicks became more endearing when the insults were directed at heels. As time went on, Cena's character morphed into its most famous rendition, and that was the leader of the C Nation. With a bright color scheme and a personality that resembled a modern-day Hulk Hogan, you can see why the younger members of the WWE Universe looked up to John Cena. Yet, the rise of hustle, loyalty, and respect came years after Austin 316, the NWO, and DX. Adults had been introduced to a much edgier product that would make it difficult for them to settle for a toned-down PG one. Throughout Cena's 16 World Championship reigns, the face of the WWE was met with cheers and boos. John was never as well received as Austin or Hogan. Also, he was never hated as much as Flair or Triple H. So why are there fans that believe John Cena is the best to ever do it? The combination of multiple iconic feuds, being an incredible ambassador for WWE, elite-level promo ability, and an underrated wrestling resume for starters. Let's dive into the discussion, shall we? When we look back at some of the all-time greats, Flair had Rhodes, Hogan had Andre, Rock and Austin had each other. There are a few candidates when you look at memorable feuds during Cena's career, but I think his most iconic feud was with Edge. If you thought the leader of the C Nation's most memorable feud was with CM Punk, The Rock, or Randy Orton, that's fair, but it only proves the point that John had magic with a number of superstars. For now, let's focus on the classic grudge with Edge. Edge won his first World Championship, specifically the WWE Championship, when the Rated R superstar cashed in his Money in the Bank contract on a bloody and battered John Cena at New Year's Revolution 2006. Both guys would take turns beating each other for the title during their feud, and deliver iconic moments like Cena showing up at Edge's hotel room, Edge slapping John's father, or Cena tossing the Rated R superstar into the Long Island Sound. The best feuds are where characters have obvious conflict. It isn't that far-fetched that one wrestler known as the Ultimate Opportunist would have issues with another known for his hard work and not taking shortcuts. When there is clear hatred in a storyline, you get specialty matches, and those specialty matches make sense. The next argument for Cena is that he is probably the greatest ambassador in pro wrestling history. Think about it. John was the face of WWE for a lot of years. Every one of them, WWE was a publicly traded company. In an era where celebrities have little privacy, and there is always a camera phone not too far away. I'm not saying Cena was perfect, but he behaved accordingly in the public eye. Imagine if you were the most demanded wrestler for photos and autographs. Fans would likely be interrupting your dinner, stopping you at the airport, or just shouting your name randomly. You can see how that might eventually get old. But John handled it in a first-class way. Despite a hectic schedule, Cena has always made time for the Make-A-Wish Foundation. In November 2019, Cena granted his 600th wish, and that total is still going up. If you think there has been a better ambassador in pro wrestling than the face of hustle, loyalty, and respect, Let me ask you this. Who has ever juggled the combination of in-ring work, interviews, appearances, charity, and staying in the top babyface spot longer than Cena? There are a few legends that can check some of those boxes, but all of them? This is why John Cena was not just a workhorse, but a trusted workhorse when the stakes have been the highest. Now let's move on to an important facet of sports entertainment, and that's promo work. If someone were to ask me who I thought was the best promo of all time, two names would jump out at me: The Rock and John Cena. The Rock is for obvious reasons. There is a clear it factor that the People's Champion had that the millions saw, and so did Hollywood. Not to be outdone, John had elite work on the microphone for a slightly different reason. To set up my reasoning, let me first say that Cena has had one of the easiest and biggest targets on him for dueling promo segments. John spent most of his long babyface run getting booed by 2/3 of the WWE Universe or hearing Cena sucks. Also, unlike many of Cena's colleagues, he did not spend years in the independent circuit. Instead, John was fast-tracked from OVW to the WWE main roster. The resentment in opposing promos probably had a hint of truth, and fans that were booing Cena were looking for any excuse to cheer his counterpart. The leader of the C Nation always found a way to respond without missing a beat. If an opponent told him that they would wrestle in a bingo hall for 50 fans because they were a true pro wrestler, John would tell them that he wouldn't do that because he loved WWE too much. There was a point of emphasis on WWE being the big leagues, and being on top of World Wrestling Entertainment made you the best. Yes, there are a lot of promos that are scripted, but if you think a writer wrote verbatim most of what Cena has said on Raw or SmackDown over the years, you have probably been watching a different show. You would only convince yourself that is the case because John thinks on his feet better than anyone. Okay, now to a statement that would have been considered controversial a decade ago. John Cena is one of the most criminally underrated in-ring performers ever. For some, this might bring outrage, as insert name here might have been a great worker, but never received the main event push they deserved. How could a superstar who spent almost their entire career as the main headliner be considered underrated? It is quite simple. Just because a superstar wins championships or goes over does not mean that a majority of fans believe that talent is a great wrestler. If I remember correctly, the 5 Moves of Doom tag stuck with Cena undeservedly so for quite some time. What wrestler doesn't have trademark moves? Yes, John used a handful of the same moves in his matches. So do most mainstream performers. Some matches are choreographed, others are called in the ring. But what would be a major disaster is if two superstars did all moves that they rarely execute. There needs to be some familiarity and comfort. With that said, just like other wrestlers, Cena would occasionally perform a maneuver that fans hadn't seen from him. The negative view around the 16-time world champion's in-ring abilities have been exaggerated. Look to Cena's United States Championship run. For a title that is rarely felt special by proof of how little Dean Ambrose defended the belt during his 351-day reign, John sure did give the championship credibility. Now obviously this was a WWE call, where in one instance the title was a prop, and in the other it became the prestigious United States Championship Open Challenge. Still, John Cena had to go out every week and deliver 4 to 5-star matches. One can't forget the fun rivalry between Cena and Kevin Owens, or the other incredible matches during John's mid-card run. What about the main event scene? Since we already mentioned the feud with Edge, let's talk about the magic that was created between CM Punk and John Cena, specifically Money in the Bank 2011. The Chicago crowd made the bout feel special, but the way Punk and Cena laid it all out on the line took the WWE Universe to a different level. From the promos to the storytelling to finally the execution, it is a rivalry like Cena vs. Punk that gets remembered forever. What is incredible is that the banner holder of Never Give Up had so many great storylines mixed with phenomenal matches that I cannot name them all. His series of matches with AJ Styles makes me wonder if that was Cena's best dance partner yet. It is a fun debate for another day. What I do know is that while John has shared the ring with a lot of skilled wrestlers, there has been one constant: him. It is not like Cena has been perfectly healthy. He's had some bumps in the road. We'll never forget the gruesome image of John's nose in a match against Seth Rollins, nor will we forget the tennis ball of fluid Cena wrestled with in his elbow against Daniel Bryan, because SummerSlam 2013 needed a main event. Still to this day, one of my favorite Royal Rumble moments was from 2008, entrant number 30. There are a lot of tough people in the world of wrestling, but how many rise to superstardom and still have the loyalty to their company to set their brand to the side and get squashed? That is what Cena did against Brock Lesnar at SummerSlam 2014, and again at WrestleMania 34 versus The Undertaker. When I look back at the career of John Cena, I think of something special that we may never see again. You can find areas of his game that another wrestler did better, but has anyone ever been more well-rounded of a sports entertainer than Cena? When we look back at John's character, it made sense that he never made the dramatic heel turn. Cena never let his fans down, rose above the hate, and actually lived by the words, "Never give up." Thank you for watching. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up and make sure to hit the subscribe button. Also, if there is an all-time great wrestler that you would like to see me spotlight and make an argument for as the best to ever do it, please leave a comment in the comments section.